those who refuse to receive their first dose in the coming weeks will have to pay a new health contribution.
He's calling it a contribution, but politicians always use words other than tax. They use levy, they sometimes use contribution. It's really a tax on the unvaccinated, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. We heard the Premier say contribution, but make no mistake about it, this would be a tax. And no, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation does not support a new tax on Canadians. And Ezra, you know, there is a lot of uncertainty going around right now, but here's what we do know. We're not going to tax our way out of a pandemic.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? It's sort of funny because we've seen governments try everything. We've seen them pay cash to people who will get the jab. We've seen in some jurisdictions lotteries. You can win huge prizes. We've seen Krispy Kreme give free donuts. I'm not sure if that's a public health matter, but I guess they've moved from the carrot to the stick. I mean, I'm just trying to think how this works. I mean, you get your tax form and you fill out questions. I don't know how they would cross-reference that with your health records. I mean, most people pay taxes, I think, once a year. And when would you be forced to pay this and how and who's going to be the tax collector? I mean, I remember when the GST was brought in. That's how old I am, Franco. I don't know if you were even born back then. But just the administrative hassle of how do you do it and how do you get every tax accountant to do it right? And like it was such an enormous undertaking. I don't even know how you would go about collecting and checking and how would this tax even work? I don't know. I don't think they have that figured out yet.
Well, there's a lot of questions, but I have a big question. It's why whenever there's this problem that politicians are looking to solve, their answer is always to hit taxpayers with higher taxes or new taxes, right? We've been in this pandemic for nearly 2 years now. And is this really the best solution that they can come up with, is to hit Canadians with a new tax? Really? Is that the best that they can do?
That's a great point. You know, there's another point, and you know, for a long time, if you asked Canadians, what makes Canada, Canada? It's hard to believe now, but there was a point in time when a lot of people would have said Medicare. That's what makes us different. And there was this whole mythology around how we're so much better and so different than Americans. And no matter what your circumstances are, you'll be covered in Canada. We heard horror stories of Americans who were bankrupted because they didn't have health insurance. And so the idea of universality was such a liberal, you know, core tenet of belief, and that everyone's covered no matter what. This seems to be, you know, yet another admission that that's not really real.
Well, I think that we definitely needed to have a very frank conversation about reforming the healthcare system even before the pandemic. But of course, COVID-19 has really put the spotlight on some of the issues with our healthcare system. I mean, for starters, taxpayers in Canada pay an arm and a leg for healthcare, but we don't get the best services for all the money that we're spending. So certainly, I think the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is open to talking about new solutions in the healthcare system, right? Letting businesses, letting entrepreneurs play a bigger role in delivering healthcare services to relieve some of the burdens on the government healthcare system. But here's the thing. I mean, the last thing that Canadians need are new taxes, right? Many Canadians are struggling through the pandemic. So many people lost their job, took a pay cut. Many small businesses are seeing their revenue evaporate before their very eyes. And the last thing that we need in Canada is a new tax. And make no mistake about it, that's a new tax.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.